Good afternoon to all those present at today's public hearing carried out by panel B of the Prosecutor Vetting Commission. I am Virginia Moraro, Deputy Chairperson of the Vetting Commission and the chair of this panel. The Prosecutor Vetting Commission was established and is carrying out its duties in compliance with the provisions of the Law 252 passed in 2023 on the external evaluation of judges and prosecutors. The law explicitly provides that this commission shall undertake the ethical and financial evaluation of prosecutors who are identified in Article 3, Paragraph 1 of that law as subjects of the evaluation. This panel carrying out this assessment consists of 3 members, and it was established for the evaluation of subjects in line with the provisions of Article 15 of the Law 252 on the 31st of May 2024 in order to carry out the assessment of the Anticorruption Prosecutor's Office prosecutors. So today here with me there are my colleagues, Irmantas Mikelionis, international member of the Prosecutor Vetting Commission, and Corneliu Lebedinsky, national member of the Commission of this panel. In today's hearing, the subject of today's hearing is Victor Cazacu, prosecutor in the Anticorruption Prosecutor's Office and subject of the evaluation in line with the provisions of Article 3, 1A and Paragraph 3. And in fact, today's hearing, same as all the other hearings of prosecutors, this hearing is carried out in line with the provisions of Article 16 of the law and in line with the provisions of the rules of procedure of the Commission for evaluations under Law 252. Mr. Cazacu, good afternoon and welcome to today's hearing. Good afternoon. The panel was also assisted throughout the entire evaluation process, and today as well by our colleagues at the Secretariat. They're providing us with the support we require. This hearing is open to the public and members of the mass media. There is English, Romanian, simultaneous interpretation available. For this reason, to allow for accurate interpretation, please speak slowly and clearly to make sure that the translation, the interpretation is as close to the original comments. And according again to Law 252, this hearing is being audio and video recorded. The recordings of the hearing shall be published on the website of the Commission within 3 days at most from the day of the hearing. At the end of the hearing, Mr. Cazacu, you will have the possibility to take the floor for some closing remarks if you so desire. I will start through a brief review of the evaluation process with regards to the subject, the prosecutor, who is here with us today in this hearing. The Commission initiated its evaluation process on the 24th of May 2024 by notifying the subject by email and by asking the subject to fill out and return to the Commission the financial declaration for the last 5 years and the ethics questionnaire. You have filled those out by the set deadline as set out in Law 252 in Article 12, Paragraphs 3 and 4, so by the set deadline of 12th of June 2024. Also, in compliance with the provisions of Article 12, Paragraph 5, of the Law 252 by filing the declarations and the questionnaire that was mentioned above. The subject of evaluation states upon their own responsibility that the data provided was true and accurate and allows for the personal data to be processed. Now, following the random distribution of the case files according to the procedure set out in Article 17 of the regulation of the Commission, the evaluation case on Prosecutor Victor Cazacu was assigned for evaluation to Panel B. On the 16th of August 2024, Mr. Cazacu was informed by email about this fact and was also informed about his right to seek the recusal of members as set out in Article 10 of the regulation of the Commission. Mr. Cazacu, you did not seek the recusal of any of the members of the Commission as far as your evaluation is concerned. Indeed, I did not, and I stick to the same position. Throughout the evaluation, the Commission has collected information on the subject and on persons close to the subject in order to establish whether the subject complies with the financial and ethical integrity criteria as set out in Article 11 of the Law 252. Also, throughout the process of evaluation, the Commission has sought and obtained information from multiple sources from among public authorities and entities such as the National Integrity Authority, the State Tax Service, the General Border Police Inspectorate, the Office of the Prosecutor General, Superior Council of Prosecutors, Customs Service, Public Services Agency, and from other private institutions, including financial, banking institutions, and it also looked information up in open sources and engaged with natural persons. All the collected information was looked at through the lens of veracity, relevance, reliability for the process of evaluation that the subject presented in this hearing has been subject to. And thus, considering the issues that emerged following the analysis of the collected information and also taking into account the information in the documentation produced by the subject, the panel asked clarification questions and sought additional information and supporting documentation. In this regard, you've answered four, in fact, rounds of questions, of follow-up questions on the 11th of April, 18th of July, 1st of September, and 19th of September 2025. And you've also produced a number of supporting documentation to support your answers. So you've answered by the deadline in all rounds of questions. In compliance with Article 16, Paragraph 1 of the law and Article 28, Paragraph 3 of the regulation of the Commission, if on the basis of the investigations with regards to the compliance of the subject with the integrity criteria, the panel or the Commission has any doubts, then the Commission or the panel shall send the subject a written notification laying out all its doubts and shall agree on a hearing at most 10 days from the date of notification in order to address those doubts. If the subject refuses to participate in the hearing, then the panel or the Commission shall complete their evaluation using as a basis the collected information without having carried out the hearing. In this regard, on the 27th of October this year, the panel notified you about having completed the evaluation, about having identified certain doubts as to your financial and ethical integrity, and that were to be addressed in a hearing, and you were thus also invited to participate in today's hearing. You confirmed receipt of the notice of hearing on that same date, and you confirmed you would participate in the hearing. And on the 28th of October, you sought access to the evaluation file. On the 31st of October this year, the Secretariat presented and handed over to the subject the evaluation materials, the evaluation file, in line with the provisions in Article 28 of the Rules of Procedure of the Commission. Mr. Cazacu, given the aforementioned, I would like to initially ask you two general questions, and then we will dive into the discussions regarding those matters that you were informed about as an annex to the notice of hearing, so that we can clarify all the issues where question or uncertainties remained. So the first question from me now is whether you want to make any amendments or additions to the information and answers you provided to the Commission earlier on in the rounds of questions, or anything you'd like to add, considering the documentation you've already provided throughout the evaluation period. Thank you. No additions to be made by me. I continue to stick to all of my explanations, to stand by the statements I've made so far in clarifying and in providing answers to the questions. And I've also put down some notes to follow in my answers when I will be making references to certain dates, also considering the answers provided and collected information, but it's nothing new. So I put down some notes, but it's nothing new. Understood. So we will be addressing them as part of the discussions that will take place around the uncertainties that we will raise as we go. And my next question has to do with your answers you've provided as part of the rounds of questions and answers and the information in the five-year declaration and the ethics questionnaire. So, is that information accurate to this day? Yes, that information is accurate to this day. All that information is accurate, and I stand by that. Understood. Next, I would like to give the floor to Irmantas Mikelionis. He will be asking questions regarding the uncertainties that can be found back in the annex to the notice of hearing. And the other members, too, will be asking you questions regarding uncertainties. Well, I would like to kindly ask you to speak slowly to make sure that the interpretation is as accurate as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Victor Cazacu, first of all, I would like to thank you for already provided information. Today you also confirmed that we received a notice of hearing dated 27th of October this year, which outlines the panel's doubts that you possess justified wealth in the total amount of 1,163,116 Moldovan lei for the year 2015 and 2018. So we would like to clarify this issue. We have prepared two sets of questions. The first group of questions related to negative balance for 2015 years, and the second group for the negative balance for 2018 years. The panel has doubts that you had negative balance for 2015 years in the amount of 15,435 Moldovan lei. And according to information available to the panel, in 2015, you had total income amounting to 311,308 Moldovan lei, which consists of the salary from prosecutor office in the amount of 67,476 Moldovan lei, the birth and child care allowance from the government of Moldova in the amount of 9,560 Moldovan lei, the child care allowance from the government of Romania in the amount of 1,936 Romanian lei, equivalent to 9,106 Moldovan lei, and income from sale of 2008-year Opel Astra vehicle in the amount of 45,000 Moldovan lei. And accordingly to this calculation, your total available financial inflow for the year 2015 was 311,308 Moldovan lei. Is this information correct?
Da, vă mulțumesc.
Thank you.
Corect sub aspectul datelor.
Accurate in terms of that,
Datele indicate în notificarea de audiere.
whether that is the same as in the notice of hearing, then yes. There is one reservation that I have and that I would like to address. You've mentioned inexplicable wealth in 2015 and 2019, but in this case, or the way it was worded, that's the 18th of October 2019, and not the entire year, so that is the only thing that I would like to mention, that it's up to that date.
Yes, your statement is correct. And according to information available to the
Mr. Cazacu, all of the information that is provided here today that are the basis for our discussion is exactly the data that appeared also in the notice of hearing. So if some amendments needed to be made, we would have sent some additional information to you. So I understand that that it's a lot of numbers, but just we want you to rest assured that what we have put down here, these numbers are the same as in the notice of hearing. Just so you know. All right, then I will follow, because I've also made some references in my notes that have to do with some of the items in the notice of hearing. So it's exactly the same information precisely. I will keep that in mind.
Thank you for your notice. So according to information available to the panel, in 2015 you had total expenses of 326,744 Moldovan lei, which consists of travel expenses to Italy amounted to 1,000 euro, the consumption expenditure for population calculated for a household of 2 adults and 1 children in the amount of 86,814 Moldovan lei.
Un copil.
One child?
Yes, one child.
Ah,
Yes,
one.
one child, yes. And cash and bank savings at the end of 2015 in the amount of 326,744 Moldovan lei. Is this information correct regarding the expenses?
Da, corect.
Yes, this is accurate.
This information was provided in the notice of hearing. And according to calculation made by the panel in 2015, you had negative balance of 15,435 Moldovan lei. And how could you explain this imbalance?
Da, vă mulțumesc.
Thank you.
Referitor la acest capitol
Now,
din
with regards to
inclusiv și din notificarea cu referire la
this issue,
audierea publică,
which was also in the notice of hearing,
cu toate că nu am dus o evidență
although I did
contabilă
not
strictă
keep
în
very
anul
strict
2015,
accounting records in 2015,
de fapt n-am dus nici în restul
and
anului,
actually in the other years as well, I did not keep strict records of these flows. I think that the negative balance,
poate fi
nevertheless,
explicat
is
și să nu fie
and
luat ca
can be
un,
explained, and I
o obiecție asupra
hope it is
activității
not taken as an
comisiei. Eu consider
objection as
că
to the
se poate
work of the
încadra,
Commission, but I think that
țin că reprezintă echivalentul aproximativ
it is, well, it is
80%
the
din
equivalent of
totalul
at least
fondului, dacă se referă la
10% of the total
cheltuielile
amount,
de
speaking of my
Eu consider că poate fi
consumer
explicat
expenditure. I think that it can be
în
explained by the
parametrii
fact
unei,
that
erori statistice
it
și
can
în
be
cele
a
ce urmează
statistical
am
error, that due to
să
some
explic de ce.
statistical error, and let me explain
Eu nu
what I mean.
pot să afirm cu certitudine
I cannot
care
say
au
with
fost,
certainty
cuantumul cheltuielilor
what were
efectuate
exactly
de
the
familiile
amounts
subsemnate
incurred
pe anul
by my
2015,
household
dar cu
throughout
siguranță ele nu au
2015,
depășit,
but they certainly did not
limita
exceed
cheltuielilor
the
medii,
limit
reieșind din,
of my
averea
expenses,
pe care o aveam
considering
atunci,
the
apartamentul
assets
în,
that we had at the time.
mărime
The
de
apartment, 58.6 square meters,
situația familiară, copilul
my
de
household
2 ani de
situation,
zile
2-year-old
și
child,
soția, care
and
în
my
acea
wife,
perioadă
who in that
se
period
afla
of
în concediu
time
de îngrijire
was
a
on
copilului.
maternity leave and child care
Bănuiesc
leave.
că
I
la calcularea
suspect, I
efectuată de
suppose
comisie,
that in those calculations made by the Commission,
metodologiei din
that was based on the
din
methodology
prezent
of
pe site-ul Biroului Național de
the National
Statistică.
Bureau of Statistics, as indicated on its website.
Exercițiul pe care l-am făcut și
Now,
eu
I do have
rezult că
put together
față de
some
copilul
numbers,
minor,
and it appears that for the
ca
minor
valoare de
child,
referință,
as a
se
reference
referă
value,
aceeași sumă ca și o
they're
persoană
taking
matură.
the same
Și în
amount
cazul de
as
față,
for an
eu
adult.
aș dori să
And
indic
in this
asupra
case,
unor
I would like to
cheltuieli,
draw attention to some
cu trimitere
expenses
exactă,
by
din
making
tabelul
specific
numărul 5,
reference
anex
in
la
Table 5,
raportul anual,
annex to the
al
annual
veniturilor și cheltuielilor
report on income and
populației Biroul
expenses
Național de
for the
Statistică
population of the
pentru anul
NBS for the
2015,
year
care eu le consider că
2015,
totuși, în
which
legătură
I
cu
believe
statutul,
that
vârsta,
if we're taking into
totuși
account the age
consider că nu
of
urmează
the
să
child,
fie
I think
reținute ca cheltuieli.
that there are certain amounts that should
Personal,
not be factored in as expenses.
Pentru 2015,
For
reieșind
2015,
după ce am studiat
Having
site-ul Biroului Național de
looked into the
Statistică,
information on the
stabilește că
website of the
metoda
NBS,
prin care se ia în
appears that the
considerație
method
nu numărul de copii în gospodării, dar
that takes into
anume
account not the number of children in a
gospodăria cu
household,
copii,
but the
abia din
household
2019 s-a
with
luat
children.
specificul acestor
It's from
fapte.
2019 that they started to take into account
Aceste situații, de fapt.
households
Și
with children, where some members are
în,
children. So that started to be the
tabelul
case
numărul
starting
5
with
sunt indicate
2019.
anumite cheltuieli
So in
care eu
Table 5,
consider
there are
că
certain
nu-i-
expenses
nu-i
that I believe
corect să fie
are,
reținute pentru
it's
copilul
not
minor.
correct to take them into account as expenses related to a minor child. The reference value is 2,475 lei. If you take away the in-kind equivalent of 93 lei of expenses to be attributed for every person. Therefore, the reference value should be 2,382.5 lei. As regards the child, as previously stated, I do have put down some estimative calculations, though I did not keep records at the time, so I have to use statistical. So 31.3% from 2,382 lei a month for a minor child, I think this should not be factored in as expenses for instance, alcoholic beverages, tobacco, 1.3%. Endowment of the dwellings, and I would like to make reference in this regard to myself and the wife, because there's been explanations provided during the rounds of questions, and I have provided a detailed account of when we carried out renovation works in the apartment. And in 2015, considering that with the situation that we had, we did not incur expenses regarding endowments. And as regards the health care for the minor child and for myself, I have also addressed this matter in the rounds of questions and explanations. It is believed that, given that I have the mandatory health insurance, that is, if we speak of the amounts for the mandatory health insurance, that is withheld from the salary. Maybe the gross amount was put down, but just my supposition. But I think that for my child, there are certain matters that should not be calculated for my child, such as transportation, entertainment 2%, hotels, restaurants, education, and other like that. Altogether, that's 31.3%. As explained, considering the situation in 2015 for my household, but I also, by the way, allow that the majority of expenses in that year, and also I don't doubt it, I think they're quite close to reality when it comes to expenses for the apartment, meaning public utility bills. Though I've made also some calculations that are about 1,000 lei less. In fact, in the Commission's materials, there are certain bills for gas, electricity, internet. In my calculations, that is about 1,000 lei less than the results of the Commission. But I think it's quite close to reality. Same is true for foodstuffs, because that accounted for the majority of the budget of the family in that period of time. And, as I've stated, expenses in Table 5 with regards to education and what the apartment or the dwelling is fitted out with, I think they have to be taken out of the expenses. But I think that once we subtract these, we will have a balance that would be at least zero. And I would like to also provide further explanation of this and say that I myself and my family, we had money on the card, and if there's any additional expenses, we would have certainly not have taken that from the card. I mean, we would have cashed out to cover some other expenses. But certainly we had money, and I don't mean that the cash. I mean the money that was on the accounts themselves. I mean, and that my bank account is tied to my bank card, my salary card. And, well, that's my response with regards to the negative balance for 2015. Thank you.
Thank you for your clarification. And let's move to the second set of questions. So the panel has doubts that you had negative balance for the period from the 1st of January 2018 to 18 October 2018 in the amount of 1,147,681 Moldovan lei. And questions regarding this issue. According to information available to the panel, on October 18, 2018, you signed a sale purchase contract for apartment with a surface area of 72.5 square meters located in Chișinău municipality on Mircea Veteran Avenue. At the time of signing the contract, you paid 402,801 Moldovan lei, equivalent to 22,000 euros, plus notarial fees in cash for this apartment. Is this information correct? And can you confirm that you paid the amount of money specified in sale purchase agreement?
Yes, the amount is accurate and corresponds to the one actually paid for the purchase of that apartment.
Can you confirm that the payment for the purchased apartment was made in the presence of the notary?
The payment was performed as indicated before we entered into the notary's office. We were nearby the notary's office. I gave them the money that happened just before we entered. And the fact that the money was received was confirmed as part of the preparation of the notary documentation. There was a signature confirming that that amount specified in the contract was received.
Could you provide more specific information, more concrete information on how the apartment or sale purchase agreement was concluded, including how you found the buyer, the technical condition of the apartment, and the details of negotiations?
Mulțumesc mult pentru posibilitatea acordată. Întâi de toate, eu
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this matter.
în partea introductivă.
But first of all, as far as I understand, that entire balance, the alleged negative balance of 1,147,681 lei, as at the 18th of October 2019, that is due to the procurement of the Mircea cel Bătrân apartment. But there are several, there is a mix of aspects. In the incoming flow, the amount I took for my parents, was not taken into account, 23,000. I had made reference to it. And then in the outgoing financial flows, there should have been not 402,000 lei, but there should have been an amount from an assessment report of 2014, 1,229,670. In this particular case, I have worded my answers depending on how the information was provided in the notice. But with regards to the apartment, I will start by detailing the circumstances around the apartment. As I've explained in the rounds of questions, the situation of the apartment, and when we found out about the offer, and when the agreement, sale and purchase agreement, was entered into, I can be mistaken by a day or two, but it did not take altogether more than 10 days. That apartment I found through an acquaintance. He recommended me someone, he gave me a phone number, told me that a friend of his, an acquaintance of his, who was already living, and out of the materials that the Commission has, you can see that when the apartment, when we bought it, there was nobody living there for about 1 year. You can see that by the prices for bills. So he was already living in a detached house, and he had the intention to sell the apartment, and the price was rather attractive. I was given the phone number. I called that person. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Wednesday, 1 week before. I remember it like this because I myself have seen the apartment on a Saturday, and I can tell you why I know for a fact that it was a Saturday. On Wednesday evening, I called that person. Just by chance that I saw that person, and just by chance that I found out about that apartment. In that period of time, given that our family was consisting of 4 members, 2 children, boy and girl, so it was quite problematic to stay in the old apartment. Although it was 58 square meters, there was 1 bedroom, 28 square meters, though quite large. It was not separated somehow, so it was quite problematic for all of us to fit there. So I was looking at new apartments initially, in new apartment buildings, and I was thinking to buy 2-bedroom apartments. in a new apartment building. However, in that particular circumstance, I was given a phone number. I called that person who was selling the apartment, and in 2-3 minutes, our discussion ended when I asked about the condition, because initially they stated 22,000. When I asked about the condition, I was said, well, what condition do you want it to be in for this price? And then we agreed that I would call the next day or the third day to ask about the possibility to see the apartment. On Friday, I called the person, the phone was off. And on Saturday, so the reason, I don't know the date, but I know that it was a Saturday, because on that day, the entire, the prosecutor's office, the Anticorruption Prosecutor's office, we were in the district of Hâncești. It was a football game of the prosecutor's office, the Anticorruption Prosecutor's office. So after the football game, I saw a notification on my phone that the number was available and I could call it. So I called the person. He said I could go to Ciocana if I could, and he told me more or less what the address was. And I have called my wife. I picked her up, because the first time that we saw the apartment, I took my wife and the children to see the apartment together. We went there, we saw the apartment, and the apartment, in the condition that it was in, there was no furniture. I did not use very technical, as in poor condition, not technical language, but the last time it has been renovated was about 15 or 20 years ago. The only thing that there was a cupboard that I fixed, and you can see in the pictures that show the current condition of the apartment. And there was the kitchen that couldn't be taken, the owners couldn't take away. The kitchen furniture, if you've noticed, it's like in more or less in the balcony. I mean, that's how they made it work. The only thing that was also there, I did not raise a lot of questions at that time. So the only thing is that the reaction of my wife, she was not necessarily very delighted with the apartment. And he said, look, you think about it. And he said, I am in a rush now, I have to go. If you make a decision, just give me a call. And then we can meet. And and then 1 hour later, I was back home. I went outside. I gave him a call, and I did not ask for anyone else's opinion. It's just there was that offer. It seemed to be too good to just let it go, and I did not seek anyone's consultation or opinion regarding that. So I called him. I said I agreed, but that the only problem was about the money. And he told me that he wanted me to pay the amount in Moldovan lei, and that next week, if I find the money, then, well, it was not a problem to find the money. I have marriage godparents, I have cousins. I'm not sure you've looked that far, at least from the evaluation files. It doesn't appear that this was looked into. I mean, there were people I could have taken the money from. And all the evidence can be provided for that. It only that did not seem to be required. After having had a discussion with him, I talked to my father. Because what's also interesting, I did not even provide an advance payment for that apartment until the 18th of October, which is a Friday. Until that date, I had the money, I exchanged the money at money exchange offices without even having the certainty. I mean, it could still have been the case that I would just the seller could have changed his mind about selling the apartment, I was thinking. So it might seem hard to believe, but that's what happened. And on Friday, on Saturday, I talked to my father. He said, there is money at home, and you can go and take it. And I took the money from my parents on Sunday. And the next week, and then on Thursday, he called me, and then I said, we can do that tomorrow. And then he said, what is the notary we can go to go through with this transaction, because I don't have any acquaintances, notary acquaintances. And on the 18th, we, well, I handed over the money, and by the way, I took leave from office. I went home, took the money, counted the money again. I handed over the money before we entered the notary's office, and there at the notary's office we signed off all the documentation. Afterwards, the only thing that was given to me from the apartment was 3 sets of keys from the entrance door, and told me that in the drawers in the kitchen there are some documents regarding some sort of verifications of controls. That's what I was told. And with the cadastre, I mean, you can tell that it's on that specific day that I went to the cadastre authorities to file the documentation for the apartment to be duly registered. But before that, after having had a discussion with a person on Wednesday, I talked to my wife about looking into how much we can get for the Buyucani apartment. That apartment was sold through an acquaintance of my wife, whom she met in the yard of the house, the apartment block where we were living. There was a woman, so this apartment was sold. There 2 women came along to see it. They had a company. I'm not sure it still exists. They met our minor, they met as our minor children were playing together in the yard of the house. And so I realized, I was aware about the risks, and these transactions might raise some questions. Well, back then I was not aware that there will be a vetting process, but I was thinking about the National Authority for Integrity. Well, frankly speaking, the NIA did not have any questions, but you do have, and that's completely understandable. So I moved from Ciocana in 1 week. I moved to Ciocana in 1 week after selling the apartment in Buyucani. So the first buyer bought the Buyucani apartment, and it was a couple, a man and a woman. So when they entered, I saw immediately that they will buy the apartment, because I saw the lady's reaction. So it was almost after we agreed with them, because there was a situation from the very beginning, they said that they would take it, and in 1 hour the man came to ask me maybe I could sell the apartment directly to them in order not to pay to the real estate company. I refused, and then in 10 days I sold the apartment. A part of the money I used to reimburse, and the remaining money was used to improve the condition of the apartment procured on Mircea Bătrân Street. Moreover, I don't know if there are any of you who are knowledgeable about repair works. You'll see that the repair, the selling, I think this is the most eloquent thing, because I did not repair all of the ceilings. I've repaired the ceilings in the hall, but you could see in the kitchen the type of ceiling used were not present in 2019. For sure, you could not find them on the market in 2019. So that was the situation that we were in. We already moved in, and I could not repair the entire apartment. So I did all of these transactions, the first one and the second one. So my point is the following. The value of the assets in 2019 did not change. Yes, I earned 12 meters, but in terms of comfort, the gain was much bigger. So though we had only 14 extra square meters, we have separate rooms for my son and my
my daughter. But the conditions in Buiucani were better. It was a new block of flats, new networks. So I believe that you might ask me as well why I believe the equivalent in euro of 1,299,000 lei, I believe it is not relevant for the situation of 2019, because if I had that amount, that it would not be logical for me to invest all of the money in an apartment in the new block of flats. Like anyone, I would, and the prices back then were affordable. In 2019, there were offers on the market. For example, the company from which I bought the apartment and which built the apartments at preferential prices for judges and prosecutors had offers of 400, 420 euro per square meters. For some companies, the prices were 550, 600 euros per square meters. So this amount would allow me to buy an apartment of about 100 square kilometers with all of the benefits of an apartment in a new building, with new infrastructure, new common areas, new lifts, stairs, and the most important thing, 2 toilets. So it's not justified if we... sorry for so many gestures, but it's not justified. So it wouldn't be reasonable, this procurement. Also anticipating the situation stated in point 45, there is a conclusion there that the price is under-evaluated and does not reflect the actual value of the property at the procurement date. So reading these materials, I've noticed that the information submitted by me were confirmed by the former owner. So the explanations, so I saw that that information is not detailed enough, so I kind of understand why the Commission had doubts. But at least I am satisfied that he confirmed. He might have refused. And I wanted to refer to a situation, point 44, contains some text that I disagree with, considering that the procurement of the apartment by the subject took place in 2019, in 5 years after the evaluation by an independent evaluator, and considering the fact that the real estate prices in Chișinău went up, the value of this apartment should be bigger. After receiving the hearing notification, I made some open source studies on the evolution of the real estate market. So it states both the open sources and the National Bureau of Statistics reports and real estate agency sites from 2008 to 2019, the real estate market and the office on the real estate market were decreasing continuously. For example, in 2015, on the website of a real estate company says that in 2019 compared to 2018, the decrease was 6%. 2015, for 2015, there was an annual decrease by 10%. Well, okay, this is the average price, but that's my point. This is my argument, supporting the fact that the price of apartments were not increasing. Moreover, considering the fact that we are speaking about an old apartment, Now, of course, the trends on the real estate market are different, and this was triggered by a series of factors and events in 2020, 2022. So, considering this situation, it's very difficult now to believe that things used to be different. But in 2019, there were enough offers, and okay, with the risk of repeating myself, I would like to say that the situation, my situation, in terms of property did not change, in terms of wealth did not change. So taking the value of the apartments now, reporting to the value of a one-room apartment in a new block, have more or less the same value. Okay, my current apartment might be a bit more expensive, but an apartment in a new block is twice more expensive. At least twice more expensive, can be more expensive than that. So yesterday I reviewed some offers. Okay, and other situations. The amount of 1,229,768 lei, if converted into euro, it would be 63.55 euro. So, reporting it to the area of the apartment pre-Q, 72 square meters, then we have 868 euro per square meters, which was a good price for 2019 for such types of apartments. And during the research that I've conducted on the website of the former Agency of Geodesy and Cadastry, I found a report where I would like to read a phrase when analyzing the prices offered. That's for 2015. So when analyzing the offer prices, we did not include the apartments from the upper class. The average price for 1 square meters of which is about 850 euro. So for sure, the apartments that I bought cannot be included in the group of luxury apartments or upper class apartments. So that's my point. That's all I can tell you. Maybe you have more questions.
Yes, of course we have. Thank you for your clarification. Could you provide to the panel, you mentioned a report about the market prices after this meeting?
Domnul Cazacu, dumneavoastră să ne prezentați toate
Mr. Cazacu, you'll submit to us all of the additional documents that you want to submit as arguments or counter-arguments to the hearing notice. So please send them by email.
Mă gândeam că surse deschise și de asta n-am pregătit din timp.
So all of your counter-arguments, please send them electronically to us.
Yes. Let's move to continue to the market price of mentioned apartment. So according to information from e-Cadastre databases, the mentioned apartment in Mircea Veteran Avenue, the apartment was mortgaged in 2014 by the previous owners, and according to the mortgage agreement of 4th April 2014 signed between the previous owners of this apartment and ProCredit Bank, the market value of this apartment in March 2014 was 1,229,670 Moldovan lei, So how can you explain the price difference between the amount you paid in 2019 and the market value indicated in this apartment mortgage agreement in 2014?
Da, mulțumesc pentru întrebare.
Thank you for your
În mod
question.
indirect, eu în principiu m-am
Indirectly,
axat pe sumă, dar
I
nu am făcut
referred
referire
to the
la...
amount,
Eu am
but I
expus
did not
situația
refer
cu
to it.
referire la
Well,
faptul că
I
nu consider
explained
relevant
that I do not believe
prețul din
that the
raport.
price in this
Eu, din câte am
report
văzut, eu
is
raportul așa și nu
relevant.
l-am văzut.
I have
Din
not seen
datele
this report,
rezultate,
but
reiesc că el nu a fost păstrat nici de bancă, nici de... Dar,
so as
în
far as
fine,
I understood, this report
chiar
was not
fost,
kept by anyone, neither by the bank
aduce o
nor by
claritate în
somebody
modalitatea
else.
în care a fost efectuată evaluarea în
Because
cauză. Eu
if
țin
I
să,
had a
întâi de
chance
toate,
to
eu
see this
doresc să
report,
atrag
maybe I
atenția
had more
asupra
clarity
faptului că
how this
evaluarea a fost
evaluation was made.
efectuată în
I
legătură
want
cu
to
obținerea
tell you
unui
that
credit.
this evaluation
Și, de fapt,
was done in order
distinct
to
de înstrăinarea
obtain
unui
a
apartament,
loan
la
credit,
obținerea unui
which is
credit, de obicei
different
se urmărește scopul
from the
obținerea
evaluation in
unui
order to
preț
sell, because if you want to get
doi
a
la mână.
credit, then
Eu nu
your
cunosc care
goal
a
is
fost
to have a higher price in the
starea
evaluation report.
apartamentului în
Number
2014
two,
și
I don't know what
raportată la
was the
starea
condition of apartment in 2014 compared to the condition of the apartment in 2019. Also, I don't know what method was used for the 2014 evaluation, because in my experience of investigating criminal cases, specifically the assessment of valuing some real estate, I know that different methods can be used. Some assessments focus on the market price only, whereas other evaluators analyze the condition of the apartment, the access that they have, the type of doors the apartment has, and all of the other elements are taken into account. Also, from my experience, I can tell you that a report contains 3 prices: max, minimum, and minimum. And given that I have not seen this report, I have not read it, it's difficult to comment on it. Regarding this value, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that, and I found it in the accumulated materials, in file 165 and 160, with regards to this value, this is not a stable value. The collateral value is 69,200. The replacement value, which is very strange, considering the value is 1,200,000 and the replacement is 428,000 and the insurance 428,160. So as far as I know, if the debtor violated their contractual obligations with regards to reimbursement, for which the mortgage loan was given, but not only for this asset, I see that they used as collateral other real estate. The bank would have retrieved
668.200, adică din valoare de
668,200. This is the real estate. This is the mortgage value. And I do not believe that the bank would have obtained a bigger amount. But considering that we do not have any explanations by the owner, these are only my assumptions deriving from the knowledge and experience that I have in this area. But with your permission, I would like to explain the following. The condition in the apartment in 2019 couldn't have been valued at the amount of 1,229,000. I described the evolution of the market, the conditions and the prices that were on the market back then. So I do not believe that this amount reflects the condition of the apartment that I acquired. Thank you.
Thank you. According to the average market values provided by the latter company for 2018, the average price per square meter for apartment in an old residential building in the Chokana sector of Chisinau was 10,191 Moldovan lei per square meter. Based on this average, the estimated market value of apartment with a surface of 72.5 square meters would be calculated as 738,847 Moldovan lei, equivalent to 37,562 euros.
Could you please repeat one more time the numbers? You read them really quickly.
So the square meter, 10,191 Moldovan lei per square meter price, and the market price for this apartment, 72.5 square meters, is 738,847 Moldovan lei, equivalent to 37,562 euros. And question, how can you explain the price difference between the amount you paid and the market value provided by a latter company for mentioned apartment?
Thank you. With my apologies, but as far as I've seen, this amount was provided by one real estate company, and in my opinion, this amount is an average on the basis of the real estate situation in Chisinau. As I've replied in the second round of questions, the price of apartment was not calculated taking into account the price per square meter. They just announced the amount of 22,000 euro. I did not present any objections as I agreed with this amount. Unfortunately, I cannot show it now, but the condition of the apartment was below average, and this is indirectly proved by the current condition of the apartment. I invested in repair works. That's what I can tell you. I believe that this is an estimation, and it would be appropriate to make an analysis of the transactions. Okay, average market value is a statistical value, but I believe it would be good to focus on the specific transaction. For sure, in 2019, there were transactions including transactions of apartments that were close in terms of price with the one I paid. And I'm sure that such transactions were also recorded with the cadastral office. So if maybe some statistics can be calculated on the basis of the prices of transactions concluded in 2019. But the former owner confirmed it. I presented, I have confirmative documents, and unfortunately, I did not make any pictures. Maybe they would have been helpful now. But if the members of the panel have studied the social network, you'll see that I don't have any pictures placed on social networks. So even the picture that I sent to you, you could see that it's only the kids there. In that picture, you can see the wall and some pieces of furniture that were in place in the apartment after the procurement. And the difference can be explained by the investments that I made in that apartment. Thank you.
On 7th of November 2018, 20 days after you purchased the apartment, you sold the previously owned apartment of 58 square meters located in Chișinău municipality, Bucane district, where you were residing for 48,700 euros. Is this information correct?
Da. Și cheltuielile,
yes, and
repartizarea banilor obținuți din tranzacția indicată.
This money was distributed as I replied in the appropriate round of questions.
So how can you explain the fact that you sold your small apartment for a higher price than the price you paid for the larger apartment?
Da, vă mulțumesc.
Thank you. I understood your question. As I have explained, I sold an apartment in a new block of flat. In terms of area, the difference is not that large, but the apartment I sold was repaired, and I bought an apartment in a totally different condition and in an old block of flats, because an apartment, a three-room apartment in a new block of flats, then the situation would have been totally different. So I believe, I do not want to offend, but I do not believe that it is correct to compare the prices of an apartment in a new block of flats with the price of an apartment in an old block of flats, because the new apartments, the price is calculated in terms of price for square meters, whereas for old block of flats, the price of apartment is set as a lump sum, as a total sum. And this consecutiveness of transactions was motivated by this very good price that I found. And that is why I decided to buy this apartment. Unfortunately, that's the only argument I can give to you right now. I don't have any other arguments.
Thank you. So we would like to clarify your incomes in 2018. So according to the information available to the panel, during the above-mentioned period starting from the 1st of January 2018 until 18th of October 2018, you had following income: 152,046 Moldovan lei salary from prosecutor office, 79,548 Moldovan lei in cash savings carried over from 2018, 6,813 Moldovan lei in bank savings carried out from 2018, 5,309 Moldovan lei as child allowance from Moldovan institution, and 17,773 Moldovan lei as child allowance from Romanian authorities. In total, your financial inflow for the relevant period amounted to 261,488 Moldovan lei. In your written replies, you also stated that in 2018 you received a short-term loan of 23,000 euros from your parents for the purchase of apartment located in Chișinău municipality on Mircea Cel-Bătrân Avenue, and the loan was taken for a short period for 3 weeks. This information is correct? Talking about your incomes for 2018.
Eu posibil n-am înțeles traduce. E unul și același împrumut.
It's the same loan. It's the same loan.
Yes, the same loan.
Da. Da, e vorba de un împrumut.
This is a loan.
Confirm datele. Poftim? De la... Da.
Yes, it's the same loan. And could you explain what financial sources your parents use to provide the loan to you for the purchase of mentioned apartment?
Vă mulțumesc pentru întrebare.
Thank you for your
Referire la
question. With regards to
mobilitate sunt
these
în
doubts,
special notificarea de audiere consemnată la punctele 25, 29, 25, 35.
25, 35 in the hearing notice.
Împrumutul dat.
This loan, as I explained, I took it from my parents, and the source of money are their cash savings. My father, as I explained, is working
in
Germany since 1996 with short breaks. So 2 or 3 times a year he travels to Germany and comes back for periods of 2 or 3 months. The funds indicated by me are the earnings in Germany. A part of them, though I could not submit any documents to confirm, but based on the materials that I have, materials accumulated by the Commission, you can see the type of work, importing vehicles and selling them in the country. In point 25, the Commission refers to a profit from importing and selling vehicles. And I believe that you have to take into account, as I have mentioned in my written answers to the round of questions, that the Commission has to take into account the income. And also, as I have explained in the second question, fourth round, and the PDF file 114 with regards to the vehicles owned by my father, you can see when they were brought in, and an argument in the favor of why you should take into account the total value. Look, the situation of 2016, there was a period of time when he had in ownership 3 vehicles which he sold. This is Opel Astra, sold in 23rd February 2016, acquired in 22 December 2014. This vehicle, Fond Transit 2006, acquired in 28th of December 2015, sold on April the 8th, 2016, and Volkswagen acquired in 2016 and sold on February 16, 2017. So he invested money for these vehicles. Because in January, February, he had these vehicles in his possession before managing to sell them. So, unfortunately, I cannot prove the amounts and the explanations provided by the work colleagues of my father, though they are not relevant. They cannot be used as evidence. I believe that they are relevant in terms of understanding the situation, the overall situation, that he is working there for many years already.
And another evidence of that is the fact that at this moment in time, he's still there for a month and a half ago he left, and he used to be back on New Year. After 2019, I provided, in fact, explanations in the second round of questions. On the 20th of February 2020, a part of the cash savings were put on a bank deposit account, and I provided explanations as to that. They were not withdrawn. The equivalent is about 12 million. on that account, on the mother's deposit account and on the father's deposit account. And those amounts are proof of the fact that they had income. In my explanations, I've also mentioned the way where the lifestyle, the modest lifestyle, meaning that I wanted to prove the fact that it allowed them to set aside and accumulate some cash savings. And I think that you too have seen it if you carried out your own investigations, that they did not cross, they did not use services of travel agencies, they did not make any significant purchases, real estate or other services that did not have a large procurement. So those are amounts that are normal, that can be expected of one earning of a sub-average value. So normal for a worker in Germany, if I may call it that, in the Federal Republic of Germany. So the fact that, considering, well, the work, formal or informal, that is an accepted situation, so to speak. So one had to think of how to provide for the family. And if things would have been legalized, there were, first of all, the father first traveled to Germany after he turned 40. And then on and off he's been coming to Moldova, but then he couldn't have, given the situation, he couldn't have received any pension there, and he couldn't have received any social benefits whatsoever from Germany. I've interrupted my train of thought and I forgot what I wanted to say. Actually, I just remembered. And the most important thing, if he would have legalized his stay there, he would have had to have a very difficult schedule that wouldn't have allowed him to travel to Moldova as much as he would have wanted to. Only 2 weeks in summer and 2 weeks in winter. So that was something like a compromise. What is more, they've never held public offices. And we've never followed, we never pursued to legalize some funds for some potential procurements in the future. All of the assets that exist, they are from sources that they have access to, and you will see that in fact they have not had any large procurements.
Could you specify how frequently did your father travel abroad for work? And on average, how many days or months per year your father worked abroad?
Da. Da, vă mulțumesc. Începând cu anul 1996.
Starting with 1996 to 1999, within those years, so 96, 97, 98, in those years, every year, he would stay 9 months each of those years. So that was the situation of access to Germany. Getting a visa was problematic, and 9 months every year of those that I've listed, he would go there in early February and return in late or at some point in December, close to December. And then he took a break of a year or two, and in that period of time, my father had his paperwork done, getting Romanian citizenship that allowed him to travel more freely. And if you've noticed, in 2001, if my memory isn't failing me, in the family of my father, a new member appeared. From that moment on, he's been living a few more years until my sister turned 5 or 6 years old. And in that period of time, he's traveled a couple of times just to bring over some cars into Moldova. And then, after 2005, Or wait, yes, once I've graduated from university in 2007, 2008, that's when the current, he embraced the current schedule, so to speak. He would work 2-3 months there, and then he'd spend 2-3 months at home. Usually, during summertime, comes to Moldova, and he stays in Moldova, and you can check that with the records that are available now. I understand that border crossing data isn't kept for more than 5 years, but usually they correspond in terms of summertime. The work conditions over there are quite poor, so it's quite hard for one to work. It is also very hot, so he stays at home. Usually he goes there after New Year, then he comes before Easter. For Easter he's home, after Easter he goes there until June, he's home the entire summer, then he's back again in December, so 2-3 months at a time. And the income that he is earning corresponds to the value of the cars that he's been bringing in. We've never, there were just 2 cars that were more expensive. Those were like trucks, Mercedes trucks, and all the rest are cars that have the cost of about a bit more than 2,000 or more than 3,000 euros. Mr. Cazacu, a clarification with regards to what you have just stated, that you have brought, so the way that you worded it was, we brought 2 vehicles or something like that. So this drew my attention, you used plural as we. So I would like to know, did you mean that you participate in bringing in by import those vehicles into Moldova by getting ready the import documentation in your father's name or your name? Or what exactly did you mean by we brought them? Thank you. As regards the number of cars, so the importation of cars until this issue, until 2000 something, I mostly dealt with that. I took care of that. That business was like a joint business, meaning that I didn't have anything. I was not, like keeping the money separately somehow. So that's why I've explained that I still regard myself as part of that family, meaning that I know about what was going on. I did not bring the cars in. He came in driving those cars. He crossed the border. I just used that way of saying, given that I was also part of that family. Because, by the way, that is not helping me out with any question, in fact, though I too have been bringing cars into the country at a particular moment in time. Those were trucks. That's what I wanted to clarify. The way you worded it, as in we had this business together, we shared this, so it gives away what you just stated, that it was a business, meaning commercial activity in the meaning of the law of Moldova. Or was that some activity that was practiced by a lot of Moldovans who were importing cars into Moldova without having registered this activity as an enterprise? So no legal entity being registered to carry out this entrepreneurial activity. So it's rather second part. This was a way for us to earn some funds. I've never had officially something like an entity on requiring some licenses or some other documentation, like a company or of sorts, or a business operator whatsoever. So the funds regarding the cars that you've imported, the vehicles you've imported, as a natural person, as an individual. So periodically you would import vehicles to Moldova, and the purpose of that was to use those cars for yourselves, or was the purpose to sell them away and earn a profit? Thank you. To a great extent, this activity was focused on bringing vehicles in to use and to then sell them. We usually used to use the car for a month or two. You can tell that by the period of time they were registered in our name. I personally, as far as this activity is concerned, I stopped doing it back in 2007. In 2008, when I was not even physically able to do this, because I had just sat the exams for the NIJ, and it was not even possible for me to do that, to engage in that activity. And as for my father, and those cars, I mean, it was doing something useful and something pleasurable, so to speak. He had to come back from Germany anyway, and I don't know if some of the members of any of the members of the Commission know how our Moldovan citizens are returning to Moldova. They bring a lot of luggage, they carry a lot of things, and while coming back, as in while at it, since he already had to come back, he would bring along some personal things that he believed he would need in his day-to-day life here. And then, after a while, long or short, he would sell those cars, so those vehicles. Sometimes there would be a profit, other times not.
Could you say what was the average income of your father per year abroad?
Thank you. As I have stated in my answers to the last round of questions, as far as I remember, I put down an estimate amount of about 7,000 euros, 8,000 euros, because that reflects the earnings for the different periods that he traveled there. For 2 months at a time, for instance, with all the expenses he had, he would manage to set aside 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 euros, depending on the works he would perform. For instance, in the field of renovations, those works are better paid. In gardening, the remuneration is smaller. And another matter that I wanted to underscore to provide further clarification, my father has been traveling to Germany for a long time now. He knows a lot of people, and this allows him to perform some works privately for some people, and that allows him to establish ahead of time his schedule. And he doesn't need to be perhaps hired with a company. And yes, given his age, he's almost 70, it's quite hard to get hired with a company at this age.
Thank you. So you state that your parents lent you in 2018 23,000 euros. Did your parents have the financial capacity to lend you a larger amount than 23,000 euros? If so, what is the maximum amount that they could lend you?
Out of discussions I've had with my father, as they've stated, they had an amount that was larger than 23,000. As in 2019, so at that time. As for the total amount, I'm not sure it is accurate to say it now, but I put it down. I mentioned it in my answers to the rounds of questions. Given that these are public hearings, if I may say that I have stated the total amount in the answers in writing. And for privacy, and if you'd like to confirm again those amounts, you can do that in writing. If you do not want to mention them now, we can also then blur some of the figures that you will mention. I mean that I've already stated it, and it is not an amount that would argue or support raising some of the other expenses or other financial matters, because that's a normal amount. A part of that money was deposited on bank accounts, and if what happened didn't happen, maybe they would have put over there the rest of the amount. But the 2022 situation happened, and that prompted them to keep a part of the money in cash.
Thank you. question about 2018, and did you have at that time the possibility to obtain a short-term financial loan not from your parents, but from other financial institutions or from other persons? If so, please specify.
Thank you. This is a situation that I myself have raised. I had the possibility to ask for a loan from third parties as well. The first person that came to my mind is my marriage godfather, my uncle, the brother of my mother, that is. And he could have also proven the source of the funds because he has some businesses. I have some acquaintances, people that I'm not affiliated by kinship with, we're not relatives, by considering my position in the office that I had in relation to the other third parties, I thought that this would be a vulnerability, this could turn into a vulnerability in the future. So that's why I decided not to take any loans from other people and outside microfinancing enterprises. And I thought it did not make sense because the interest was so big with microfinancing companies. And so the entire amount for the bank, if I took that from a banking institution, then the length of time would be quite long. And I'm not sure that I have never sought the services of microfinancing companies. I don't even know if an amount like this, if I could have obtained this entire amount that I required from a microfinancing institution. And in fact, I never took a loan from a bank even, but certainly I could have obtained a loan from a bank. So.
Thank you. And then let's return to your expenses in 2018. So according to the information available to the panel, in 2018 you had the following expenses. 39,347 Moldovan lei for vacation expenses, 106,564 Moldovan lei as CAP for a household of 2 adults and 2 children, 33,588 Moldovan lei in bank savings as for 18 October 2018, and in panel assessment 1,229,670 Moldovan lei paid for the purchase of the above-mentioned apartment. In total, your expenses for the period from 1st January 2018 to 18 October 2018 amounted to 1,409,169 Moldovan lei. Considering that during this period your income amounted to 261,488 Moldovan lei, excluding the short-term loan of 23,000 euros reportedly provided by your parents, and given that the panel has doubts that your parents hadn't the financial capacity to provide such loan, your negative balance amounts to 1,147,681 Moldovan lei. How can you explain this imbalance?
Da, mulțumesc.
Thank you.
Îmi-asum faptul că nu am fost suficient de explicit.
I might not have been explicit enough with regards to this situation. Out of my calculations, it comes out that the entire amount is due to the procurement of the apartment. If you look at the calculations for the inflows, outflows, there were different amounts included there in these calculations, but I provide an explanation for that. For the incoming flows, you did not take into account the loan from my parents of 23,000 euros that I used to spend to pay for the apartment. And for the outgoing flows, you did not take into account the amount that was actually paid for the amount. But what was factored in is the amount from the report. And as far as I understand, this is where this negative balance is coming from, because of these differences. Otherwise, even with all of the consumer expenditure, out of my calculation, I did not come across any such negative balances.
Thank you for your detailed answers. So I don't have more.
Domnul Cazacu, eu tot o să am niște întrebări.
I too, Mr. Cazacu, will have a few clarification questions. Going back to the apartment, the 2019 apartment, and the amounts in that evaluation report, as we can see in the information provided by the bank, and that the former owner sought, the one that you have bought the apartment from, that's the 2019 apartment we are speaking about, you know which one that is. In the sale and purchase agreement that you have signed with the previous owner, it says, well, it's a bit more than 400,000 days. So that is the amount that you have agreed upon with the owner of the apartment at that time. The contract, the agreement also states the cadastral value, which is identical to this amount. Yes, it corresponds. Now, the cadastral value, we all know very well that it is taken on the basis of official information provided by the public institution called Register of Real Estate. And this value has to do with a second-hand real estate. Is that right? Yes, that is for the apartment that you bought in 2019. When was that block of apartments built, if you know, more or less? As far as I know, Ciocana, compared to other city districts, it is newer compared to other city districts. So I imagine, I assume it's among the last apartment blocks that were built in about 1980s, in the 1980s. So perhaps the value was established in about 2000, not the cadastral value established as at the date that you bought the apartment on. I'm not sure they did it in 2000, because in 2002, as I can see out of the paperwork, the previous owner became owner of that apartment around that time. So in 2002, the previous owner bought the apartment. And on the basis of the documentation of the commission, I've seen the amount there was even smaller, 40-something thousand lei. And I don't think that the cadastral value was there at that time. Most likely that value was evaluated at a later point, assessed at a later point, all the more so since the mortgage documentation was with the cadastre at that time. Now, I don't know when was the last update of prices, though, I mean, of the value of such assets. Concurrently, in that information that you too are aware of, because that was made available to you in the evaluation file, there are several amounts listed with regards to the apartment in 2014 when the former owner took she pledged that as collateral. So several assets were assessed for those purposes, movable and immovable property alike. About 660,000 is the collateral value provided there, which means that the bank, in extreme conditions, would have collected back the lent amount like that. If, for instance, the debtor defaulted and wouldn't have been able to pay the amount took out from the bank. So you've mentioned that a very short while afterwards, and you can see that out of the documentation collected and examined by the Commission, you sold the apartment that you owned in 2019 as owner, and after the purchase of the asset assessed in 2014 at the request of the previous owner. Could you clarify for us what was the time difference between the procurement and sale in 2019? You bought, I understand. You mean the difference? According to the contract, that's the 18th of October, I understand. That's exactly what I wanted to clarify. The 18th of October, on that date, so 10 days before that I found out about it. I've explained on the time axis how things happened. I might have been mistaken by a day or two. The apartment, but your apartment, the apartment that I was owner of, It is virtually more or less than days around that. I know that it's around that time because the procedure to get a certificate of ownership from the cadastre, to confirm that the real estate is not subject to some prohibitions. So that takes about 5 days normally. And at some point in late October, I already knew I was going to sell the apartment. So on around the 30th, perhaps that would be more or less a date, an approximate date, when you had already decided. No, I already knew, I already had a buyer, somebody who wanted to buy that apartment. So can you tell us, actually, after the procurement of the apartment on the 18th of October, how soon did you move there, move into the newly purchased apartment? 1 week after we sold the apartment that we owned. That is in mid-November, at some point in mid-November. Can you tell us, given that you've claimed that the apartment was in a condition, I can't remember very well to be able to use the same exact words that you've used, but I remember very clearly that your wife was not particularly fond of that apartment. Well, when you move from a new building into an old building, how can you necessarily like it? And you did not take into account your wife's opinion then. It's not that I disregarded it. It was a rational choice. I understand the situation, but I understand where you're going. My question is, what improvement works, remodeling, refurbishment works, larger or smaller renovation works were performed within that 1 month since the moment you bought it and until you moved into that apartment, bringing along 2 minor children? As I stated, after I got it, the renovation works began. Once I had the certainty that I would sell the other one, I had received the down payment for the apartment I was owning, and I sought the services of an acquaintance of my father. He helped me out with the renovations for the first apartment that I owned. And so the main works, the ceiling, for instance, because that is the most, the one that is most cumbersome and leaves a lot of dust. And so then we ordered, first of all, new window frames. So you've replaced the windows completely, yes. And once we managed to do that, and to fix the ceiling. In the other rooms, you can see that the ceilings are, in the other rooms, the ceiling was okay. But in the hallway and in the kitchen, there were like, so to speak, 3 layers. 3 layers, and they're a good place for dust to collect. And in older houses like that, the ceiling, it feels like it's very, like the height of the walls isn't that big, so it feels like the ceiling is hovering over you. So we've renovated, and then at some point we had to think of when to renovate the ceilings, but you can tell that they were not renovated all at once, not fixed all at once. Still, in addition to changing the window frames, the windows altogether, and fixing the ceilings, what else did you do? Something for some works in the toilet. We changed the tiles, replaced the tiles. What else? The bathtub, the sink, and the toilet itself. The toilet was replaced a little bit later, so for a while we've used the old one, and like last minute we've gotten a new one, because usually when renovation works are performed, did you change any pipes or the piping, given that you've made some changes in the bathroom? Yes, a part of the pipes were replaced, a part of them, because the apartment is rather, I mean, some changes have been performed there in the past, and so you can tell we've made some changes. There's only one door. You can see there's only one door in the hallway, so some changes were made to the pipes, to the piping. And, well, first of all, there was mold there. And since I'd already started to invest into that, I thought that was the most important thing to address. And the engineering, that's usually the worst issue that you have to deal with in old apartment buildings. The apartment that you owned in 2019, at around the 30th, you've sold it, that you used to own. Yes, it was, well, that's when we agreed, de jure and de facto, or just de jure, or no, actually the money, I had received the money on the 7th, or what date was it? On the 7th of November. On the 7th of November. It's just that at that time we'd agreed, we had like preliminary contract. It wasn't me who signed it off, but the real estate agency, and that's when a down payment was made, 2,000 euros if I'm not mistaken. But in the money I have received on the 7th of November. And when you got the funds, the money, did you transfer the apartment or to the new owner? No. When did you de jure and de facto make the handover? De facto and de jure in the week that followed the sale on the 7th. That's when the transaction occurred, which means that the next weekend, that's when I handed over the keys and everything. There was a situation that initially, I too initially wanted to stay in that apartment until New Year, and the key issue was not about the renovations in that apartment, but it was about the girl, the daughter. She was last year in kindergarten, in the class before school, and it was very problematic to move her to a different kindergarten. And although we moved, I continued to take her to the kindergarten in the Buyucan city district, from one city district to another. And the COVID, in a way, I should say, facilitated our situations, because of the lockdown, we stayed at home until January. It was quite complicated. We had to wake up early at 6. And on the 17th, I went there. Because initially, when we agreed, they said it was not an issue for us to stay there until New Year. And still, after the payment was processed, we went through the process with the payment. And realized that we had to move out, and I did not want to stay there for too long, so we moved out.
So, knowing that you do not have the necessary funds for repair works, because you've said yourself you had to change the windows, the ceilings, the toilets, the bathrooms, and since then, October the 18th, you did not know that you'll be able to sell the existing apartment. Yes, but I started the works after the date of 30th, after I had the certainty that I'll be able to sell the apartment. No, I understood. But my question is the following. On the date of 18th of October, you did not know for sure that you'll be able to sell the apartment in a short period of time. No, I had the certainty, because I did not want to insist on a big price. The fact, if I did not manage to sell the apartment in 2-3 weeks, then I would have decreased the price. But did you make any calculations to know that you'll be able to sell it within 2 or 3 weeks? Because it's not a transaction that can be done in a short period of time. No. When I was told that I was told that with this price I'll be able to sell it in 2-3 weeks, or maximum 1 month. I was told this by the real estate agency after you bought the apartment, or before? No, after. That's why initially I wanted to set it at 50,000, but he said that considering the company that built it, it would be difficult, because it's the same company that built it. It is not viewed as prestigious as other companies. And back then, the difference per square meters was about 100-150 euro. So, though I could afford the luxury of waiting, I did not want it. I wanted to solve this problem with apartments, and I was. Did you have any other options during that period? I mean, other apartments, or that was the only best solution? No, actually, no. I was looking periodically to see offers of two-room apartments. So, if you know the location at the end of Alba Iulia Street, a new block of flat was built, and I was analyzing the prices there. It was about 650 euro per square meters, and that was the price I was guided. And I was looking at apartments that were still being built, because the offer was about 420 euro per square meter. So that was the apartments I was looking at. And in 2019,
Dar s-a demonstrat că am avut și noroc, că după asta în 2020 a fost foarte problematic și a început
was a good situation, and in 2020 the prices started to go up, and I believe that I was lucky because I was very quick in taking a decision, and I did not insist on buying an apartment in a new block of flats. Because in a new block of flats, for example, I lived since 2014 to 2019 in a new block of flats, and everybody around were repairing their flats, and it was very noisy. Yeah, I understood. So going back to the repair works, that were not the simplest. It was not just to paint the walls or change the wallpaper. These were some more consistent works. They were both complex and I don't know how to put it correctly. It was necessary. It was more difficult to do these repair works and live in that apartment. Or some to replace the windows, or to do some works in the bathroom, because time is needed for the cement to dry out, because you've said that you've changed the tiles in the bathroom. 1 month was enough for these major works and move in. So the windows were changed during 1 day. I do not remember the technical terminology. So I don't remember the terminology that's around the window in white. So that's the region around the windows. So it takes more time, but you can live even if they're not ready. And in the bathroom, we did not change the base. We just removed the old tiles, and a part of the gypsum plates were replaced. And in terms of time, okay, we did not use the old technology. Some special substance was used, so we needed about 10 days to replace the tiles in the bathroom. The toilet was changed, was replaced in 2020.
Deșeurile menajere legate de cunoscut, ele să și într-un bloc sanitar nou să-l pui, îl murdărești, să spunem așa. Și asta a fost în ultimul moment.
So we decided to do this in the last, because in order not to soil it with the waste from other repair works. So that was the idea. In an apartment, like we did in the previous apartment,
blocul sanitar și
we did the repair in the
bucătărie.
toilet and the kitchen, the last.
Poate de locuit, da.
Am înțeles. Și revenind la
Okay,
prețurile alea
understood.
din 2014,
Regarding the prices
evaluate
in
de către
2014, evaluated
independenți,
by
pe
an
care le-a
independent
solicitat
evaluator
fosta
that the
proprietar.
former owner
Dacă
has
să facem o
requested.
diferență
If we are
dintre prețul
to
real pe care
make
putea
the
să-l
difference
obțină banca
between
în
the real
cazul
price that
unor
the bank
situații
could
în
have
care
obtained
creditorul nu,
if
pardon,
the
debitorul nu și-ar fi
debtor
putut
wouldn't
onora
have been
obligația
able
de
to repay
restituirea
the loan,
banilor solicitați de la bancă. Și
and
valoarea cadastrală
the
la
cadastral
care
value
dumneavoastră
that
ați
you
procurat acest apartament este o diferență
used to
cam
buy
de
the
peste
apartment,
200
it's
și ceva de
more
mii
than
de lei.
200,000 lei, the difference.
În 4 ani e o
4 years,
descreștere a valorii considerabilă, având în vedere
so
prețurile
this decrease,
care
this
sunt.
drop in
Totuși,
value
din
is quite
perspectiva
significant
dumneavoastră,
for a period of 4
care ați
years.
văzut apartamentul la data
So
de
you've
atunci.
seen
Totuși,
the
care au
apartment
fost
back
acele
then.
chestii? Că eu, ca un observator
Because
independent dintr-o parte și care am văzut
myself,
și eu la viața mea
as
apartamente, că am fost în situația dumneavoastră ca să caut
an
apartamente,
observer from
trebuia
outside,
să mă gândesc
and
că a
also
fost
based
un pojar,
on
probabil, că nu știu,
my
zic și
experience,
așa,
because
de
I was looking
exemplu,
for
care
apartment
să
as well.
scadă într-atâta
I'm
prețul
thinking
unui
that maybe, I don't know, there was a
apartament
fire there
comparativ cu
or
valoarea
something like this to drop the price of
apreciată de
apartment
bancă
that
ca
much
una
compared
reală să o
to
obțină
the
și una
value
considerabil
set by the
mărită
bank,
cu valoarea de piață care a fost, la care a fost evaluat acest apartament în speță de către evaluatorul independent, care este de peste 1 milion de lei.
Da, vă mulțumesc.
Deci, în ambele,
Thank you.
în ambele cazuri,
So in both
diferențele
cases,
sunt
the
de la mare
differences
spre foarte
are
orice
big
caz,
and very
diferența
big.
dintre valoarea
So
care
the difference
figurează
between
ca,
the value indicated
valoarea
as
ipotecă
the
e explicabilă
mortgage
prin
loan
însăși
value is
devalorizarea
explained
care
by
este.
the
Nu în totalitate, dar
the
e explicabilă.
evaluation.
Sunt dificultăți să expun
It's
care sunt
difficult for me
motivele
to
pentru care
explain
condiționat,
the reasons underpinning
stabilirea unui preț,
the price established
de către,
by
vânzător.
the seller.
Aici a fost cerut interesul, dacă pot
But
să spun așa,
I believe that
cumpărătorului
it
să
was
iei mai- să
determined
iei cu cât mai
by
ieftin,
the
cu atât mai bine.
buyer's
Eu în detalii n-am intrat.
interest.
Și mai mult, eu din câte am studiat materialele,
So,
rezult că
I've
nu poate
studied
să
the
fie bănuit
materials
eventual
and
că s-a făcut o tranzacție pentru
I
a
would
evita
say that we cannot assume that a transaction was made to avoid paying taxes. No, we are not accusing you. We are trying to understand what was the real value of this apartment so that we understand how to regard this discrepancy between income and expenses, whether it's 1 million or above or it's lower, based on the explanations and evidence that you prove, that you submit. We just try to make an objective evaluation. That's why I am trying to explain. I don't know what was the condition of the apartment in 2014, but the condition I saw in 2019 did not cost 1,200,000. That's why I have some doubts that the report that was prepared was done by seeing the apartment. Because if the apartment were in the same condition in 2014 as in 2019, then that for sure we could not.
În apartament se poate de trăit. În orice apartament se poate
It
trăit,
was
cum se poate
possible
trăi
to
și în
live
apartament, în sens
in
nou dacă
that
cu un bloc
apartment. In
sanitar.
any apartment you can live, provided that you have a toilet. But the conditions were very low, and for sure it was under the market average. Thank you. And today you have mentioned, and perhaps in the round of questions, if I remember exactly, so you've said that the kitchen furniture remained in the apartment. No, only the wall.
A rămas anume acel mobilier care nu putea fi luat.
So
El e prins
only the
partea de jos,
furniture that was stick to the wall, that could not be removed, that remained in a cupboard. And you are still using it? No. I removed it immediately. The table was rotten, and the same about the cupboards were more or less okay.
But
I removed it. The cupboard only remained because it's big, and I keep the documents and footwear in the lower part. I only replaced some elements in the cupboard. So, how much did you invest in this apartment before moving in after 1 month? I did not keep track. I made the payments after I got the money. What payments? The payments for repair. So you need tiles, you needed some construction materials, you bought the tub. Yes, correct. I used the services of a friend of my father who are of the same age, so he has the possibility to buy in debt from stores, and that was another reason why I told you that I cannot submit any documents. Most of the procurements were done on the basis of the discount card that that friend has. I made the payments from the very beginning and after I got the amount of money, and that was the reason why I did not keep track of the money, because I did not, if I didn't have it, I would have been more careful with the calculations. Okay, on the basis of what you've said, I understand that procurements were made, so it means that the goods were received in kind. So did you go together with your wife to choose the tile, or it was your friend? No, it was the friend. I was very busy back then. I did not have time. I physically did not manage to go, and I was recently transferred to the Anticorruption Prosecution. I'm not complaining, but the working regime in 2019 was horrible. So we knew that there were a lot of working groups, a lot of searches. We are not accusing you of anything. I repeat one more time. I just want to understand. I don't know whether it's weird for an owner who is making repair works, does not choose the tiles and for kitchen and for the bathroom and other needed utilities. But you could have a break, it's not a problem. I do not want to. I did not participate in the first repairs. Well, I did not choose. Was the wife involved? No, neither for the first nor for the second apartment. At the first, it was not possible because the child was 1 year old, but for the second one, she had 2 children, kindergarten, and a younger age. So, if I had a house, an individual house, maybe I could have had some personal preferences, but for an apartment, the friend has experience in this area, so I don't have any preferences in terms of colors. So it's important not to have cold colors, but the rest are okay. Okay, so you've said now, while replying to my questions and my colleagues' questions, that a friend of your father dealt with the works and with the procurements, and you made the payments immediately that you received the money. Have you transferred a total amount, or did you transfer it in installments? I mean the payments for the procurements and for the repair works.
achitările cum au
The
fost efectuate.
payments were done as follows. He would tell me, I need this amount of money for this and this and that. So initially, I paid him in euro. When was the first time? When I made the first payment. Yes, but when was the first payment made? The first payment was made. Yes, the first payment was made after I received. For the first time, I sent to him 1,000 euro for the remuneration of workers, and after that 5,000 euro, I sent this amount to him after I managed to sell the apartment on November the 7th. Well, I was told that he had to pay the workers. So that was the same situation with the first apartment. Okay, I understood. Do not care about the first apartment. We're speaking about the second one. Did you pay in 2 installments or more installments to pay for works and procurement? So for sure there were 3 installments and maybe a 4th one also, but because I spent, I did not, I don't have a report, but as far as I remember, I spent up to 10,000 euro for repair works. So the first installment is 1,000, then 5,000, then 4,000, and perhaps there was a 4th installment of about 500 euro, but I'm not sure about it. And no. I'm not sure about the 4th one. Was it 500 or 400? Because I sent something, but when I was filling in the declarations for the national, for NIA, I made an analysis. Okay, going back to the amount of 1,000 euro that you paid to the friend of your father, so you said that this money was used to pay the workers. So he paid his workers, not mine. Yes, the workers, the people that did the repair works in your apartment. When was this payment done? In early November, immediately after I got the down payment, because I consulted him with regards to the investments to be made in the apartment. How many people, how many workers were involved in your work? So it was 2 people at a time or 3 people at a time? For example, installing the doors, this was done separately. So you've changed the doors as well. Yes, I've mentioned that the doors were changed in 2020. For example, the doors and windows were changed by other workers, not by those that were doing the interior works. And who installed the windows? I don't know. It was a friend who took care of it. My point is that those who painted walls did not change walls, did not change windows. Okay, so the walls of which rooms have been painted? In all of the rooms. The walls were not leveled up. Because I just removed the old painting and painted them again. So in the kitchen they were painted yellow, in one room they were painted pink, in my daughter's room it was dark blue, and so each room had its own color. So I decided to change the colors of the walls so that they are in the same nuance, in the same hue. Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Maybe my colleagues have questions.
Domnul Cazacu,
Mr. Cazacu, Having said that, we are finishing the hearing session, and if you would like to make a final statement, you have this possibility now. Thank you for the opportunity. Unfortunately, I have not prepared a closing speech, but I would like to express my appreciation for the Commission's work. Thank you for my evaluation. Being aware of the importance of this exercise and the responsibility of the Commission, I would like to express my hope that the decision issued with regards to myself and other colleagues are positive. Thank you very much. Thank you. Whether the decision will be favorable or not, it will be decided by the Superior Council of Prosecutors. We will just issue an evaluation report where we will include the recommendations of our panel. If reached an agreement, if not, according to the law, we'll discuss the topic within the Commission. We finish the evaluation at this stage. Hopefully within a month, 30 working days, the evaluation report will be issued and sent to you and the Superior Council of Prosecutors. That's according to the procedure. Thank you for your participation, thank you for your patience and for the explanations provided, and all the best in your work. Thank you very much. Have a great day. A great evening, actually.